If you ever wake up and don't remember me, promise you'll at least read the notes I left behind. The sentence isn't spoken out loud, but it echoes in my head the second I open my eyes, like a memory that didn't survive the crash but left its shadow behind. And for a moment, I just lie there staring at the unfamiliar ceiling tiles, counting the tiny cracks like they might tell me who I used to be or who I was supposed to remember, because something feels missing, not in a dramatic way, not like panic, just quiet, like a room where someone important used to live and suddenly doesn't anymore. And then I notice my hand, the 4 taped to my wrist, the hospital bracelet digging into my skin, and beneath it, barely visible under the fading ink, for words written in my own handwriting. Find Lucas Hale, and my stomach drops, not because I recognize the name, but because I don't, because it feels like I should, like the syllables are supposed to mean something, like they used to belong somewhere inside me. But now there's just this hollow space where that meaning should be, and when I push myself up, the room tilts slightly, slow and heavy, like gravity hasn't fully decided what to do with me yet. And the nurse comes in with a careful smile, the kind people use when they're trying not to scare you. And she tells me I've been out for 2 days, that I'm lucky, that the doctors expect a full recovery, except for a small gap, in my memory, about 6 months or so. Like she's talking about a misplaced set of keys instead of half a year of my life. And I laugh, because what else am I supposed to do? Because 6 months isn't small. It's birthdays and conversations and decisions and promises I don't remember making, promises like the one written on my skin. And when I ask her who Lucas Hale is, she hesitates just a second too long before saying, "You tell me." And suddenly the room feels colder, like something just shifted that I can't see. And later, when I'm alone again, I start checking my things, my phone, my jacket, anything that might still belong to the version of me I can't access anymore. And that's when I find the first note, folded into the inside pocket of my jacket, the paper worn soft at the edges like it's been handled too many times, and my fingers shake just a little as I open it, because I already know the handwriting is mine. I can feel it before I even look, and the message is short, almost painfully simple. Don't forget our future. And I stare at it for a long time, longer than I should, because the words don't mean anything, and yet they feel like everything, like they're reaching for me from somewhere, just out of reach. And for the first time since I woke up, my chest tightens with something that isn't confusion, isn't fear, but something deeper, something heavier, like loss without a memory to attach it to, and I whisper the name again, slower this time, testing how it feels in my mouth, Lucas Hale. And the silence that follows is so complete it almost feels like an answer. The note stays in my hand long after I finish reading it, the paper warm now like it is absorbing the confusion leaking out of me, and I cannot stop turning it over, checking the back like maybe there is more, like maybe there is an explanation written somewhere I just have not found yet. But there is nothing, just that single sentence that feels heavier the longer I hold it. And I tell myself it does not make sense because I do not remember making plans with anyone. I do not remember promising a future. I do not remember Lucas Hale, but my chest tightens again anyway, sharp and quiet, like my body is disagreeing with me, like it knows something I do not. And I hate that feeling. I hate not being in control of my own reactions. So I reach for my phone, because that is what people do when they do not remember. They check, they scroll, they search for proof of who they used to be, but my messages are clean, too clean. Like someone already went through and erased anything that might matter. And that thought makes something cold settle under my ribs, because I do not know if it was me or someone else who decided those conversations were better off gone. And when I search the name Lucas Hale, nothing comes up, no contacts, no messages, no photos, not even a missed call, like he never existed in my life at all. And yet the ink on my wrist says otherwise, the note in my hand says otherwise. And I feel like I am standing in the middle of 2 versions of reality that do not match. One where he matters, and one where he does not. And I do not know which one is real. And then I notice something I missed before, a faint indentation beneath the words on the note. Like there used to be more written there, like something was erased or smudged away, and I run my thumb over it, trying to feel the shape of letters that are no longer visible. And for a second I swear I can almost make it out. The ghost of a sentence pressing against my skin, something about staying, something about not leaving, and my breath catches because that feels important. That feels like the part 1 am supposed to understand, but it slips away before I can hold on to it. And I push myself out of the bed despite the dull ache in my body, because sitting still is not working. Thinking is not working, and I need something real, something physical. So I cross the small hospital room, each step careful, grounded, like I am trying to prove to myself that I am still here, still solid, still in control, and I stand in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection like it might answer me, like I might recognize something in my own face that explains all of this. But it is just me, just a stranger wearing my features, eyes that look a little too tired, a little too uncertain, and I lift my wrist again, reading the words one more time. Find Lucas Hale, slower this time. Like maybe the meaning will change if I say it differently, and something shifts, not a memory, not exactly, but a feeling, faint and distant, like standing on the edge of a place I have been before but cannot enter, and it scares me more than the emptiness did, because now I know there is something there, something real, something I lost, and I do not know if finding him will give it back, or break whatever is left of me, but I also know I am going to try anyway, because whoever I was before the crash thought this mattered enough to write it into my skin, and that version of me must have had a reason, even if I do not remember what it was. The decision settles into me quietly, not like a burst of courage, but like something inevitable, like gravity finally pulling me in the direction I was always going to fall, and I spend the next hour asking questions no one can really answer. The nurse, the doctor, even the receptionist at the front desk. But the name Lucas Hale does not mean anything to them either, or if it does, they do not show it. And I start to realize how strange that is, how someone important enough for me to carve into my own skin could exist so completely outside of everything else in my life, like he only ever belonged to me. And the thought makes my chest tighten again, softer this time, almost like recognition brushing against the edges of something I still cannot reach. And when they finally discharge me, the late afternoon sun feels too bright, too normal, like the world is moving on without waiting for me to catch up. And I stand there on the sidewalk outside the hospital, holding a small bag of my things, feeling like I am supposed to know where to go next but do not, until I remember the note, the instruction, find Lucas Hale, and it feels less like a suggestion now and more like the only direction I have left. So I start with the simplest thing I can think of. I search his name online again, slower this time, more deliberate, and this time something shows up. Not much, just a few scattered results, a business listing, a mention in a local article about a small architecture firm, Hale, and Carter Design. And the second I read that name Carter, something in me pauses, because that is my last name. That is me. And I stare at the screen, heart beating a little too fast, trying to understand what that means, how my name could be connected to someone I do not remember at all. And I tell myself it could be a coincidence. That Carter is not exactly rare, but it does not feel like a coincidence. It feels like a thread, thin and fragile but real, and I follow it, pulling up the address listed for the firm, memorizing it before I can talk myself out of going, and the drive across town feels longer than it should, every red light stretching the distance, every passing minute giving me more time to second-guess this, to wonder if I am about to step into something I am not ready for, something I chose to forget for a reason. And that thought lingers, heavy and persistent, because what if losing those 6 months was not just an accident? What if it was something my mind needed, something it protected me from? And what if finding Lucas means breaking that protection? And I almost turn the car around twice before I finally pull into the parking lot. The building in front of me smaller than I expected, clean glass windows reflecting the fading sunlight, calm and ordinary in a way that feels almost wrong compared to the storm building inside me. And I sit there for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the door like it might open on its own, like he might walk out and make this easier somehow. But nothing happens, just the quiet hum of the city around me. And I take a breath, slow and steady, trying to anchor myself in something real, because this is real, this is happening, and whatever waits on the other side of that door is something I chose once, even if I do not remember why. And I push the car door open, step out, and start walking, each step heavier than the last, until I reach the entrance, my reflection staring back at me. In the glass again, just as uncertain as before, and I hesitate, just for a second, before reaching for the handle, because something deep in my chest is whispering that once I walk in, nothing is going to feel simple again, and I am not sure if I am ready for that. but I also know I am not walking away. The door opens with a soft click that feels louder than it should, like it is announcing me to a place I do not belong to anymore. And the air inside is cooler, quieter, carrying that faint scent of paper and polished wood that somehow makes everything feel more permanent, more real, and I hesitate just inside the entrance, my hand still resting on the handle like I might need to leave quickly, like I might have made a mistake coming here, but no one rushes toward me, no one reacts. Just a receptionist behind the desk who glances up with a polite smile that does not recognize me. And that alone is enough to send something uneasy through my chest. Because if my name is on the building, if Carter is part of this place, then why does no one look at me like I belong here? And I take a step forward anyway, forcing my voice to stay steady as I say I am looking for Lucas Hale, and the moment his name leaves my mouth the air shifts, subtle but unmistakable, like something invisible just tightened, and the receptionist pauses for half a second too long before nodding and telling me he is in a meeting, asking if I have an appointment, and I almost say no, almost back out, but instead I hear myself say yes, because something in me refuses to be turned away, refuses to leave without answers, and she gestures toward a waiting area, soft. Chairs lined up against a glass wall that looks out over the city, and I sit, my hands resting on my knees, trying to keep them still while my mind refuses to do the same, because everything here feels familiar in the wrong way, like a place I have been before but cannot prove it. And I notice the details without trying, the framed sketches on the walls, clean lines and careful structure, the kind of work that feels precise but not cold. And there is a flicker of something in my chest again, faint and fleeting, like recognition trying to surface and failing, and I focus on it, chasing it. But it slips away just as quickly, leaving me with nothing but the quiet hum of the building and the sound of my own breathing. And then I hear footsteps, measured and steady, coming from down the hallway, and I do not know why my body reacts before my mind does. But it does, my shoulders tightening, my breath catching, something inside me bracing for impact, even though I do not know what that impact is. And when he steps into view, everything else seems to fall away, the noise, the light, the space between us shrinking into something that feels too small and too vast at the same time. And I know it is him before anyone says his name, before the receptionist looks up and greets him, because the look on his face when his eyes land on me is not something you fake. It is not something you mistake. It is the kind of expression that carries history, something deep and complicated and unfinished, and it hits me harder than anything else so far, harder than the notes, harder than the missing memories, because I do not remember him, but he clearly remembers me, and not in a distant way, not in a casual way, but in a way that feels personal, specific, like I was once something important to him. And for a second neither of us moves, just standing there in the space between what I know and what I do not. And I expect him to say something first, to explain, to fill in the silence, but he does not. He just looks at me like he is waiting for something I cannot give him, and the weight of that expectation presses down on me until I finally speak, my voice quieter than I intended, almost uncertain as I say his name, Lucas, and the reaction is immediate, not loud, not dramatic, just a subtle shift in his expression, like something cracked beneath the surface, and he takes a step closer, slow and deliberate, stopping just far enough away that I can feel the distance between us, the kind that is not measured in feet, but in everything I do not remember. And when he finally speaks, his voice is calm, controlled, but there is something underneath it, something restrained and heavy as he says, "You found me." Like that was never a question, like that was always going to happen. And I swallow, trying to steady myself, trying to hold on to something solid in the middle of all this uncertainty. And I tell him the truth because I do not have anything else to offer. I say I do not remember him. And the silence that follows feels different this time, sharper, more fragile, like it is balancing on the edge of something that could break at any second. And he nods slowly, like he already knew, like he has been expecting this. And for the first time I wonder not just what I lost, but what he has been carrying this entire time without me. For a moment I think that is it, that this is where the story ends, with me standing in front of a man who clearly matters and feeling nothing but the absence of something I cannot name. But Lucas does not leave. He does not turn away or shut down like I half expect him to. Instead, he exhales slowly, like he has been holding his breath for longer than I can understand, and gestures toward the hallway behind him, asking if I can spare a few minutes. His tone steady but not distant, and I nod. Before I can second-guess it, because I did not come this far just to walk away again. And following him down the corridor feels strange in a way that is hard to explain, like my body knows the path even if my mind does not, like I am retracing steps I cannot see. And he leads me into a quiet office with large windows and clean lines, a space that feels intentional and controlled. And there is something about it that settles me just enough to breathe, even as everything else inside me feels unsteady. And he closes the door behind us with a soft click, not trapping, just contained, like he understands the need for space. And for a few seconds neither of us speaks, the silence stretching between us again, but this time it feels less sharp, more careful, like we are both trying not to break something fragile that already exists, and I am the one who fills it first, because I need to understand, because I cannot keep standing in the middle of this without answers. And I tell him about the notes, about the one in my jacket, the words on my wrist, the feeling that none of this makes sense, and yet somehow matters more than anything else right now. And I watch his face as I speak, searching for something, a reaction, a confirmation, and when I mention the notes his expression shifts in a way that is almost imperceptible, but still there, something tight around his eyes, something that looks like recognition mixed with something heavier, and he looks away for a second, just a second, like he needs to steady himself before responding, and when he finally does his voice is lower, quieter, like the words carry weight he is not sure how to hold. And he says, "You were the one who started writing them." And the statement lands in my chest like a delayed realization, not shocking, not entirely, because part of me already suspected it, the handwriting, the phrasing, the way the words felt too close to be anyone else's, but hearing him say it makes it real in a way I cannot ignore. And I shake my head slightly, not in denial but in confusion, because that does not answer the question that matters, why? And I ask him that, directly. Why would I need to leave myself notes about someone I supposedly cared about? Why would I not just remember? And this time he does not answer right away, his gaze dropping to the desk for a moment before lifting back to me. And there is something in his eyes now that was not there before, something conflicted, like he is standing at the edge of a truth he is not sure he is allowed to give me. And he says carefully, "Because you were afraid you might forget." And the words settle into the space between us, heavy and quiet. And I feel that same strange tightening in my chest again, that same pull towards something I cannot reach. Because if I was afraid of forgetting him, if I went that far to leave reminders for myself, then whatever we had was not small, it was not casual, it was something worth holding on to, something I thought I could lose. And I do not know what scares me more, the idea that I lost it anyway, or the possibility that there is a reason I did. And I look at him again, really look this time, trying to see past the stranger in front of me to the person I must have known, the one I must have trusted enough to build a future with. And I ask the question that feels like it matters more than anything else right now. What were we? And the silence that follows is not empty. It is full of everything he is not saying, everything I do not remember. And when he finally answers, his voice is steady, but something in it fractures just slightly as he says, "You were everything." And I do not know why. But that hurts more than anything else so far. The words linger in the air long after he says them. You were everything. Repeating in my head like something I should recognize but cannot. And I find myself staring at him, searching for proof, for something in his expression that might anchor those words to something real. But all I see is restraint, something carefully held back, like he is giving me only what I can handle and nothing more. And that realization unsettles me more than the words themselves. Because it means there is more, so much more that I am not seeing. And I take a step back without meaning to, not away from him exactly, but away from the weight of it. Because how am I supposed to carry something that big when I do not even remember where it came from? And I shake my head slightly, trying to clear the fog building behind my eyes. Because this cannot be it. This cannot just be a feeling without context, a statement without proof, and I need something solid, something I can hold on to that is not just his word against my empty memory. So I ask him if there is anything else, anything real, photos, messages, anything that shows what we were. And for the first time he hesitates in a way that feels different, not uncertain, but deliberate, like he is choosing what to give me and what to keep. And that choice matters. I can feel it. And after a moment, he walks past me toward the desk, opening a drawer and pulling out something small, a phone, not his current one, but an older model, worn at the edges, and he sets it down between us without pushing it closer, just leaving it there like an option I can take or leave. And he says quietly, "This was yours," and the statement hits me in a way I did not expect, because I already have my phone, I already checked it, and there was nothing there, no trace of him, no history, just empty space where something should have been. And I look at the device on the desk like it might explain that gap, like it might hold the version of me that disappeared, and I ask, why I have never seen it before, why it was not with my things at the hospital. And his answer is simple, almost too simple. "You told me to keep it." And that sends another ripple through me, because it means I trusted him with something important enough to hide from myself. And that thought does not feel accidental. It feels intentional, like part of a plan I no longer understand. And I reach for the phone slowly, my fingers brushing against it, hesitating just for a second before I pick it up, because something in my chest tightens again. That same warning feeling, that same sense that I am about to cross into something I cannot undo. And I glance at him, searching his face for guidance, for reassurance, for anything that might tell me what I am about to see. But he does not offer any. He just watches, steady and quiet, like he is leaving the choice entirely to me. And I swallow, pressing the power button, the screen flickering to life after a second that feels longer than it should. And there is no lock screen, no passcode, just a home screen that feels familiar in a way that makes my chest ache, because I know it without remembering it, like muscle memory without the memory. And my eyes move across the apps until they land on one that does not belong, not something standard, not something I would have installed casually, just a simple icon labeled Notes. And for a moment, I just stare at it, because I already know, I already feel what is waiting behind it. And my thumb hovers above the screen, hesitating again. Because once I open it, whatever is inside becomes real, becomes something I cannot ignore or explain away. And I take a breath, slow and unsteady, before tapping it open, and the screen fills with lines of text, dozens of them, all in my handwriting, all addressed to me, each one a message from a version of myself I do not remember. And the first line at the top is simple, almost gentle, like it was written for this exact moment. "If you are reading this, it means it finally happened." My fingers tighten around the phone as I read the first line again, slower this time, like it might change if I give it enough attention. "If you are reading this, it means it finally happened." And something about that word "finally" sends a quiet chill through me, because it suggests inevitability, not accident, not chance, but something expected, something planned for. And I scroll down, my thumb moving carefully like I am afraid the words might disappear if I rush. And the next line is shorter, more direct, "Do not panic," which would be reassuring if it did not immediately make me do the opposite. And I let out a small breath that feels tighter than it should, glancing up at Lucas without thinking. But he does not interrupt, he does not explain, he just watches, steady and silent, like this is something I have to face on my own. And I look back down, forcing myself to keep going. "You are safe, you always are with him." And my eyes catch on that word "him," lingering there for a second longer than the rest, because I know who it means now, even if I do not remember why. And something in my chest pulls again, softer this time, like a thread being gently tugged. And I keep reading. "You are going to want to run. That is normal. Do not trust that instinct right away." And I almost laugh at that, a quiet, disbelieving sound, because that is exactly what I have been feeling since I walked into this building, since I saw him, since everything started not making sense. And the fact that I predicted it, that I knew I would react this way, unsettles me more than anything else so far, because it means I understood myself better than I do now. And I scroll again, the words coming faster now, like I cannot stop even if I wanted to. "You loved him." And there it is, written in my own hand, simple and undeniable, not past tense exactly, not something that feels finished, just a statement of fact. And I feel that same strange pressure behind my ribs again, that same hollow ache that does not have a memory to attach itself to. And I swallow, trying to push through it, trying to stay focused, because there is more, there has to be more. And the next line is different, heavier, like the tone shifts just slightly, like I was struggling when I wrote it. "You heard him," and my breath catches on that one, sharp and sudden, because that is not something I expected. not something I was prepared to see. And I glance up again, this time not by accident. But Lucas is not looking at me anymore. His gaze turns slightly away, like he already knows what I am reading, like he has lived with those words longer than I have. And something twists in my chest, something uncomfortable and unfamiliar. And I look back down, my focus narrowing to the screen. Because I need to understand what that means, how I could have been both things at once, how I could have loved him and hurt him enough that it mattered. And I scroll further, slower now, bracing myself for whatever comes next, and the lines start to blur together, fragments of thoughts, reminders, instructions, each one carrying a piece of something I cannot fully see yet. Do not let him leave again. Listen to him even if it hurts. You owe him that much. And I stop there, my thumb hovering over the screen as the weight of those words settles in, because they feel like an apology I do not remember making, like a responsibility I do not remember taking on. And I lift my head slowly, meeting Lucas's eyes again. And this time there is no confusion in his expression, no question, just something steady and quiet and waiting, like he has already given me everything he can, and whatever happens next is up to me. But the problem is I still do not know what happened before, and the phone feels heavier in my hand now, like it is holding more than just words, like it is holding the version of me I do not recognize. And I realize with a slow, sinking certainty that finding him was never going to be the end of this. It was only the beginning. The silence between us stretches again, but it feels different now. Heavier, filled with everything I have just read and everything I still do not understand. And I realize I cannot just stand here, holding pieces of a story, without asking how they fit together. So I tighten my grip on the phone slightly and look at him directly, forcing myself not to look away this time. And I ask the question that has been building in my chest since the moment I read those words. How did I hurt you? And the second it leaves my mouth, I almost regret it. Not because I do not want the answer, but because I can see it land on him. The way his shoulders shift almost imperceptibly. The way his gaze drops for a fraction of a second before he steadies it again. Like he has practiced holding that reaction in place. Like he has learned how to carry it without letting it show. And that realization makes something twist inside me, something close to guilt, even though I do not remember earning it. And for a moment he does not respond, just stands there in that quiet, controlled way of his. And I wonder if he is going to refuse, if he is going to decide I do not deserve to know. But then he exhales slowly, like he is letting go of something he has been holding on to for too long. And he says, "You walked away," and the simplicity of it catches me off guard, because I expected something bigger, something more dramatic, something that would justify the weight of everything I have felt so far. But those three words settle into me in a way that is almost worse, because they are quiet, final, and I shake my head slightly, trying to understand, because that does not match what I have seen, the notes, the messages, the way I wrote to myself like I was afraid of losing him. And I say that. I tell him none of this makes sense. Why would I go through all of that just to leave? And this time there is something different in his expression, not restraint, not distance, but something sharper, something that almost looks like frustration breaking through the control. And he steps closer, not aggressively, not threatening, just enough to close the space between us, enough that I can feel the shift in the air. And he says, "Because you thought it was the right thing to do." And that does not help. It only makes the gap wider. Because I do not know what that means. I do not know what could make leaving someone you loved feel like the right choice. And he must see that confusion on my face, because his voice softens again, the edge fading as quickly as it appeared. And he adds, "You said I deserved better." And the words hit differently, not like an accusation, not like blame, but like something he has repeated to himself too many times. And I feel that same pressure in my chest again, stronger now, more insistent. Like something inside me is reacting before I can catch up, and I look back down at the phone, at the lines I already read. You hurt him. You owe him that much. And suddenly they feel clearer, like pieces starting to align, like a pattern forming just out of reach. And I scroll again, searching for something that explains this, something that tells me why I would make that decision. And there it is, buried further down, almost like I tried to hide it from myself. If you are reading this, you are going to think leaving was a mistake, but you need to remember why you did it. And my breath slows as I read the next line, more carefully this time, because it feels important, because it feels like the answer I have been chasing. You were scared of what you were becoming, and I stop, my thumb hovering over the screen again, because that does not sound like love or loss or anything simple. It sounds like something else entirely, something I do not recognize, and I lift my head slowly, meeting his eyes again, and this time there is no distance in the question I ask, no hesitation, just quiet, steady uncertainty as I say, what was I becoming? And the way his expression shifts tells me that whatever the answer is, it is not going to be easy to hear. The question hangs between us, heavier than anything I have asked so far, and for the first time since I walked into this office, Lucas does not answer right away, not even with that careful, measured control he has been holding on to. Instead, he just looks at me, really looks at me, like he is trying to decide how much of the truth I can carry without breaking, and I feel that hesitation settle into my chest, not as fear but as anticipation, because whatever I was becoming, it mattered enough for me to walk away from him. It mattered enough for me to erase 6 months of my own life. And that is not something small, that is not something simple. And when he finally speaks, his voice is quieter than before, not weaker, just more deliberate, like every word is chosen carefully before it leaves his mouth. And he says, "Someone who thought he was not enough?" And the answer catches me off guard, because it does not sound like a transformation. It does not sound like something dangerous or extreme. It sounds human, painfully normal in a way that makes it harder to accept. And I shake my head slightly, trying to reconcile that with everything else, because that cannot be all of it. That cannot explain why I would leave someone I loved, why I would prepare for losing my own memories like it was inevitable. And he must see that in my expression, because he continues, not rushing, not pushing, just unfolding the truth piece by piece. You started to believe that everything good in your life was temporary, that you were going to ruin it eventually. And the words land slowly, sinking in deeper with each second, because they feel uncomfortably familiar, not as a memory, not as something I can recall clearly, but as a pattern, as a way of thinking that echoes faintly in the back of my mind, like something I have felt before even if I cannot place when. And I look down at the phone again, at the notes I wrote to myself, the warnings, the instructions, and suddenly they feel different, less like reminders and more like defenses, like I was trying to protect something from myself. And that realization sends a quiet unease through me, because it means the problem was not something external, it was me, my thoughts, my fears, my decisions, and I swallow, my throat tightening slightly as I try to understand what that looked like, how far it went, and I ask him, more quietly now, did I really think that? And this time his answer is immediate, steady, yes, and there is no judgment in it, no blame, just honesty, and somehow that makes it harder to hear, because it means he is not exaggerating. He is not reshaping the past to make it easier to explain. He is just telling me what was true, and I exhale, slowly, trying to process it, trying to see how that belief could lead to everything else, the notes, the distance, the decision to leave. And he takes another step closer, not enough to crowd me, just enough to narrow the space between us, and his voice softens again, quieter now, almost careful as he adds, "You thought if you left first, it would hurt less." And that is the moment something shifts inside me, not a memory, not something I can see or name, but a feeling, sharp and sudden, like a fragment of understanding breaking through the surface, because that makes sense in a way I cannot fully explain. It connects the pieces, the fear, the notes, the apology I do not remember making, and I close my eyes for a second, just a second, letting that realization settle, because it feels like standing on the edge of something I almost recognize. And when I open them again, I am still here, still in this office, still facing a man I do not remember loving, but somehow already hurt. And the weight of that sits heavy in my chest, because it means the problem did not disappear with my memory. It is still here, still part of me. And I look at him again, searching for something I cannot quite define. And I realize that for all the answers I have been chasing, there is one question I have not asked yet, one that feels more important now than anything else, and I ask it before I can stop myself, my voice quieter than before, but steady enough to carry the weight of it. If I left because I thought you deserved better, then why are you still here? And the way his expression changes tells me that whatever the answer is, it is not something simple, not something easy, and definitely not something I am ready for. The question lingers between us, quiet but heavy, and for a second I think he might not answer, Not because he does not want to, but because whatever the answer is, it matters too much to say carelessly. And I watch the shift in his expression, subtle but real, the way his jaw tightens slightly before relaxing again, like he is choosing his words with the same careful precision he has used for everything else so far. And when he finally speaks, his voice is steady, but there is something deeper. Beneath it, something that does not quite hide. And he says, "Because I did not agree with you." And the simplicity of it catches me off guard. Again, because I expected something more complicated, something layered, but there is no hesitation in the way he says it, no doubt, just quiet certainty, and I feel something in my chest react to that. Something small but undeniable, like a spark trying to catch in a place that has been empty for too long. And I frown slightly, trying to understand what that means, because if I left thinking he deserved better, and he stayed because he disagreed, then we were never on the same side of that decision, and that realization shifts something in the way I see all of this, because it means I did not just leave, I left against him, against what he wanted, and the thought sits heavier than I expect, settling into that same place where everything else has been building. And I glance down at the phone again, at the words I wrote to myself, the warnings, the instructions, and I wonder if I knew that. If I knew I was making a decision he would not accept, and I ask him that, quietly, "Did you try to stop me?" And this time there is a flicker of something sharper in his expression, not anger exactly, but something close to it, something that carries weight, and he lets out a small breath before answering. "I tried to understand you." And that answer lands differently, softer but somehow more painful, because it means he did not fight me. He did not force me to stay. He tried to meet me where I was, even if that place did not make sense, and I feel that same tightening in my chest again. Stronger now, more insistent, like something inside me is reacting to the idea of that version of him, the one who stayed even when I was pulling away. And I look back at him, really look this time, noticing the details I might have missed before, the way he holds himself, controlled but not closed off, the way his gaze stays steady even when the conversation shifts into something harder. And I realize there is something constant about him, something that does not change even when everything else does. And that thought settles into me in a way that feels important, like it is part of the answer I have been searching for without knowing it. And he continues before I can ask anything else, his voice quieter now, but more direct. "You kept saying you were going to ruin it, that it was only a matter of time before you pushed me too far." And I feel that familiar unease again, that echo of something I almost recognize, and I shake my head slightly, because I do not remember saying those words, but I can almost hear them anyway, like they belong to a version of me that still exists somewhere just out of reach. And he adds, "You thought leaving would prove you were right." And that is the moment something shifts again, deeper this time, because that logic feels twisted but clear, like a self-fulfilling decision, like I was trying to confirm something I already believed. And I close my eyes briefly, letting that settle, because it feels like I am starting to understand not just what happened, but why. And that is almost more unsettling than the emptiness was, because it means the choices I made still belong to me, even if I do not remember making them. And when I open my eyes again, I find him watching me, not with expectation, not with pressure, just with that same steady presence, like he is giving me space to process all of this without pushing me further than I can go. And I realize that this is what he meant. This is what he has been doing the entire time, staying, not because it is easy, not because it makes sense, but because he chose to. And that realization sits heavy in my chest, because it means I am standing in front of someone who saw the worst version of me, the one who believed he was not enough, the one who walked away and decided to stay anyway. And I do not know what to do with that yet, but I know it changes something, even if I cannot name what it is. And I take a slow breath, steadying myself, because for the first time since I woke up, I am not just reacting, I am starting to see the shape of what happened. And that makes the next question feel inevitable, because if I was so certain I would ruin everything, then I need to know what changed. And I look at him again, my voice quieter now, but steadier than before as I ask, "What made me think I was becoming that person?" And the way his expression shifts tells me that whatever comes next is going to matter even more than everything he has already said. The question shifts something in him immediately, not in a dramatic way, not like a sudden reaction, but in a quieter, more telling way, like a door inside him just opened a little wider than before, And for the first time since this conversation started, he does not answer right away, not because he does not know, but because he is deciding how to say it without undoing whatever fragile balance we have managed to keep so far. And I can feel the weight of that hesitation settle into the space between us, not uncomfortable, just real. Like this is the part of the story that matters the most. And when he finally speaks, his voice is lower, steadier, but there is something underneath it now, something that feels closer to the truth than anything he has said before. And he says, "It was not one thing," and I nod slightly, because that makes sense, because nothing this complicated ever comes from a single moment. And he continues, his gaze steady on mine, like he is making sure I stay with him through this. "You started noticing patterns, small things at first, the way you reacted when something went wrong, the way you shut down instead of talking, the way you assumed the worst even when nothing had happened yet." And as he speaks, I feel something shift again, not a memory, but recognition, like hearing someone describe a habit I do not remember having but somehow know belongs to me. And I look down briefly, my grip tightening around the phone without meaning to, because the more he says, the more it feels like he is describing someone I almost recognize, someone just out of reach. And he adds, "You said it felt like you were watching yourself do it and not being able to stop." And that lands deeper than the rest, because it does not just explain behavior. It explains fear, the kind that comes from feeling out of control. And I exhale slowly, my chest tightening again as that idea settles in. Because it is one thing to make mistakes, it is another to feel like you are becoming someone you do not want to be. And I ask, quieter now, "Did I change?" And he does not hesitate this time. "No." And the answer is immediate, certain, and it makes me look up again, because it contradicts everything else. Because if I did not change, then why did it feel like I was? And he seems to understand that question before I even ask it, because his voice softens slightly as he explains, "You did not change. You just started seeing yourself differently." And that shifts something again, deeper this time, because it reframes everything. Because it means the problem was not what I was doing. It was how I saw it, how I interpreted it. And that realization sits heavy in my chest, because it feels like something I could have gotten through, something that did not have to end the way it did. And he continues, quieter now, like the words matter more the further we go. "You kept asking me if I was going to leave, even when nothing was wrong. And I told you the truth every time, but you did not believe me." And I feel that in a way I cannot fully explain, like a distant echo of a conversation I cannot hear clearly but still understand. And I swallow, my throat tight, because I can see it now, not as a memory, but as a pattern, as something that builds over time, small doubts stacking on top of each other until they become something heavier, something harder to ignore. And he adds, "You thought it was only a matter of time before I saw what you saw." And that is the moment it clicks, not completely, not like everything suddenly makes sense, but enough that I can see the shape of it, enough that I understand how it led to everything else, the notes, the decision, the distance. And I close my eyes for a second, letting that settle, because it feels like standing at the edge of a version of myself I almost recognize, one that was trying to protect something by letting it go. And when I open them again, I am still here, still in this room, still facing the person I walked away from, and the weight of that realization sits heavy but clearer now, less chaotic, more defined. And I look at him again, really look this time, and I realize something else, something that has been there the entire time, but I am only just starting to understand. He did not leave. He stayed, through all of it, through the doubt, through the distance, through the version of me that could not believe in something that was right in front of him. And that changes something, even if I cannot fully name it yet. And I take a slow breath, steadying myself again. Because for the first time I am not just trying to figure out what happened, I am starting to understand why it mattered. And that makes the next thought rise before I can stop it, quiet but undeniable. If I saw myself that way before, if I believed I was going to ruin everything, then what is stopping me from doing the same thing again now? And the question lingers there, unspoken but heavy, because I do not know the answer, and I am not sure he does either. The thought settles in quietly but refuses to leave, lingering at the edge of everything I have just begun to understand. Because it does not matter how clearly I can see the past if the same patterns are still there, if the same doubts are still waiting for the right moment to return. And I do not realize I have gone still until Lucas speaks again, his voice softer now, not pushing, not interrupting, just present, like he has learned how to meet silence without breaking it. And he says, "You asked me that once," and the words pull my attention back to him immediately, because that means this is not new. This fear, this question, it existed before, and I find myself holding on to that detail more tightly than anything else, because if I asked it then, maybe there was an answer, maybe there was something I believed, even for a moment, and I ask him what he said, my voice quieter than before but steadier, because I need to know if there was ever a version of me that believed things could be different, and he takes a small breath before answering. Like the memory matters, like he is not just recalling words but the moment itself, and he says, "I told you I was not afraid of who you might become. I was only afraid of losing you to something that was not even real." And the sentence lands in a way that is almost disorienting, because it reframes everything again, because it suggests the problem was not something inevitable, not something fixed, but something that existed in my perception, in the way I saw myself and the world around me. And I feel that same tightness in my chest again, but this time it is different, less sharp, more grounded, like something settling instead of breaking. And I look down at the phone again, at the notes I left behind. And suddenly they do not feel like warnings anymore. They feel like attempts, like I was trying to leave a path for myself to follow back, something to guide me through the same confusion I am feeling now. And I scroll further, slower this time, not searching for answers but letting them come. And there is another line, buried between the others, easy to miss if I had not been looking for it. "You are not as broken as you think you are." And I stop there, my breath catching slightly, because that does not sound like a warning. It sounds like reassurance, like something I needed to hear enough to write it down. And I repeat it silently, letting the words settle, because they feel unfamiliar and familiar at the same time, like something I want to believe but do not quite know how to yet. And I glance up at Lucas again, noticing the way he is watching me, not expectant, not hopeful in an obvious way, just steady, like he has been here before, like he has seen me stand in this exact place, between doubt and something else. And I realize that is exactly what this is, not a moment of clarity, not a sudden change, just a point in between, a place where I can either follow the same path I did before or choose something different. And that thought feels heavier than anything else so far, because it means this is not just about remembering. It is about deciding, about what I do with the pieces I have now. And I look back down at the screen one more time, my eyes moving over the words I wrote, the ones that felt like instructions and the ones that feel like reminders, and I understand something I did not before. I was not just trying to prepare for losing my memory. I was trying to give myself a chance to do it differently. And that realization settles into me slowly, not as certainty, but as possibility. And I take a small breath, grounding myself in that feeling, because it is new, because it is fragile, and I am not sure how long it will last. And when I look back up at him again, there is a shift in the space between us, subtle but real, like something has changed even if nothing has been said. And I realize that for the first time since I woke up, I am not just reacting to what I lost. I am starting to consider what I might choose next. And that thought is both terrifying and strangely steady at the same time. For a long moment, neither of us moves. The air between us quiet, but no longer empty, filled instead with something that feels almost fragile, like a balance that could tip in either direction depending on what I do next. And I realize that is what this comes down to. Not the past, not the missing memories, not even the reasons I left, but this moment, this choice. And the weight of that settles into my chest in a way that feels both heavy and strangely steady, like something I can actually hold onto. And I glance down at the phone one last time, at the words I left for myself, the warnings, the apologies, the quiet attempts to guide a version of me that would not understand any of it. And I wonder what that version of me expected to happen here, what he thought I would do when I finally stood in front of the person I once chose to walk away from. And for a second I consider the easiest option, the one that feels the most familiar even without the memory attached to it. I could step back, thank him for the answers, and leave again, keep everything contained, controlled, safe in the way that distance always is. And the thought lingers just long enough to feel real, just long enough for me to recognize it for what it is, the same instinct I wrote about, the same reflex to run before anything can go wrong. And I let out a slow breath, because now I see it, now I understand how it works. And that changes something, even if it does not make the fear disappear. And when I look back up at him, he has not moved, not closer, not farther, just there, steady in the way he has been from the beginning, like he is giving me the space to make this decision without influencing it. And I realize that is the difference. That is what I did not trust before. The fact that he would stay without forcing me, that he would let me choose even if that choice meant losing him again, and something in my chest tightens at that. Not painfully this time, but firmly, like something settling into place, and I take a small step forward without fully deciding to, just enough to close a fraction of the distance between us, and the movement feels small but significant, like crossing a line I did not know I was standing behind, and his expression shifts slightly, not in surprise, not in relief, just a quiet acknowledgement that he noticed, that it matters, and I find myself holding his gaze now, not searching for answers anymore, just present in a way I have not been since this started, and I say it before I can overthink it, my voice steady even if the feeling behind it is not fully certain. I do not remember loving you. And the words hang there for a second, honest and incomplete, but I do not stop. I continue, because this matters, because it needs to be said clearly, but I think I wanted to, and that is the closest thing to truth I have right now. Not a memory, not a promise, just a direction, and I watch him carefully as I say it. Not for validation, not for reassurance, just to see how it lands. And there is a flicker of something in his eyes, something softer than anything I have seen so far. But he does not interrupt, he does not fill in the gaps for me. He just lets the moment exist, and I realize that is what I need. Not answers handed to me, not certainty forced into place, just the space to figure it out myself. And I take another breath, slower this time, grounding myself in that thought, because this is not about going back. It is not about recreating something I lost. It is about what comes next, what I choose to build from here. And that realization steadies me more than anything else so far. And I glance down briefly at the phone before locking the screen. The note's still there, still waiting, but no longer the only thing guiding me. And when I look back up at him again, there is no script for what happens next, no instructions left behind to follow. Just this moment, this choice, and the quiet understanding that whatever comes after this, it will be something new, something I am deciding for myself. And for the first time since I woke up, that does not feel like something to be afraid of.